Appreciate your time, Catherine Bennett. Brad Hazzard, the Health Minister of New South Wales this morning, saying that he is fairly happy today. Now, we don't know the case numbers yet, and we won't know for at least another 2 hours. But if we look at yesterday, 15 new cases out of 38,000 tests, does that indicate cautious optimism?
Yes, look, I do think there are a number of good signs, not just the fact that we only had 15 yesterday after, as you say, such an enormous testing number, but also that every case yesterday was also linked back to these known original clusters, either directly or indirectly. So that's really important because it means they're not seeing other cases appear that suggest there could be other chains of transmission that they've missed. So that's also really encouraging. And any sign of containment, we'll take at the moment. That's what you want to hear.
Yeah, absolutely. And we are seeing a number of other venues, particularly around Greater Sydney, now being listed as a health alert. What is the risk that there could be underlying infections in the community?
Well, as I said, the fact that cases are linked to some of these satellite exposure places now, so we've had some cases linked to hairdressers and so on. So it tells us how important, if anyone's been to any of those sites, to follow up. Those that are close contacts, where they've been in a closed space for 2 hours or very close to potentially some of the cases, then they're even more important to follow up. So we have seen some cases linked to those exposure sites, but we know about those exposure sites and they're very actively following up everyone who's been there. But it does make the point, anyone in Sydney or beyond Sydney, even interstate, who's been in Sydney, to check those updated announcements every day, because they are changing, they are adding new places, and it's really important anyone who could have been exposed knows about it so they can get tested too.
Well, speaking of interstate, as per our breaking news, Victoria has recorded 1 new case in a returned traveller from the Northern Beaches. Is there any risk to the Victorian public?
Well, so far it sounds good. It doesn't seem that there are any local exposure sites. Hopefully this is someone who came back and did isolate straight away while they waited for their test result. So that's good news. But it does mean that anyone who's been in Sydney or those, particularly the hotspot areas, and has come back to any state, but particularly from our perspective in Victoria, anyone who's come home and has not been tested, then they absolutely should go and get tested. Whether you've got symptoms or not, if you've been in a hot zone, you need to be tested, and then we'll be able to manage this in a way that doesn't spread this into other states.
Let's talk about the UK strain of the virus. Yesterday, New South Wales said that there had been a few returned travellers in hotel quarantine, that they'd picked up this particular new strain. It is not linked to the Northern Beaches outbreak, but how concerned should we be that it has reached our shores?
Yeah, we still don't know a whole lot about this. It's not confirmed yet. There are signs that it might be more infectious. So if it does get into a household, say, more people in that household would get infected than with other strains. But that's not yet been really proven with hard data. There's some signs in the lab, and they're certainly looking at the overall numbers and suggesting that the rapid takeoff in certain areas in the UK where this strain's now established suggest it could be more infectious. But, we saw that in the US, that was claimed over previous strains, and the same even in South Australia, where they thought they had a strain that had a much shorter incubation period, just because of the way it plays out in the community and where it lands and who it infects. So we're still waiting to really get a better understanding of what that might mean. But we don't want any strain coming in. And if any strain has the potential to move to new cases and create new cases faster, then that's absolutely something we need to keep at the border and make sure that everything we now have in place puts us in a better position to protect us from that crossing over and getting into the community like we've just seen in Sydney.
Catherine Bennett, we have to leave it there. Appreciate your time this morning.
Thanks, Danica.